Your story is your struggle. So without the struggle, what are you going to contribute? Where are you going to be? You need to be challenged. It stuck with me, even for kids. You got a whole different life and it's just one block away. Why give up when you're right there? You got to have a little grit. You got to stick through it. You got to fight through whatever it is, because the sun will come up tomorrow.
Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to Classy, the podcast for teachers and other lunatics who work with children. I'm Gayle Danley, slam poetry champion, master teaching artist, mama, jogger, and lover of anything creamy. Teachers, if you are looking for a place to put it all on the floor, you are in the right classroom. Scream, cry, bust out laughing. Let me know how you really feel about what you do. Welcome home, teachers. This is Classy. Hey, y'all. I am so excited. I feel like I almost have to sit on my hands because this is episode number 1 of my brand new podcast, Classy. I've been thinking about this, y'all, for so many years. How can I say thank you? How can I say thank you to the teachers who have been so good to me? What is the gift I can give? And how can I open up my home and my heart to folks like Miss Sylvia Sewell, who turned me on to poetry when I was a 6th grader down in Georgia? So here it is, a place, a space for you to rant, to cry, to scream, to feel, and just for us to be together, relaxing and talking about what affects our children and affects us most. I created this podcast, Classy, for those of us who work with children and damn near lose our minds trying to make the world beautiful for them. I wanted you to have a place of beauty. I wanted you, teacher, to have a place where you could just be you. We're going through a lot right now. Trying to come out of the pandemic. Are we hybrid? Are we face-to-face? Where the hell are we? We're here. Right here. Brand new podcast. Episode number 1. Yay! All for you. All for teachers who have given themselves every day to the world, and you aren't always treated very well. Now, are you? You certainly ain't paid enough. You certainly aren't celebrated. Everybody's expecting you to do everything, and you are still hanging in there no matter what. I love you. You hear that, teachers? I love you for that. I love you for you. I love you for how you love the children. I love them too. So, welcome to Classy. My first guest had to be a special one. I mean, he's smooth, he's dapper, he's an actor, he was National Teacher of the Year, he looks just like Alec Baldwin. He's Michael Bell, the Supervisor of Visual and Performing Arts, World Languages, and Media. Whew, I had to take a breath after saying all of that, with Queen Anne's Public Schools, which just means he helps our children get art. All of our children get art. And in a little bitty county like Queen Anne's, which is right on the tip of Annapolis, Maryland, lots of kids, lots of brown kids can get lost in the sauce. But Michael, he makes sure that doesn't happen. And he gets so many cool points from me for the work that he does. But Michael, y'all, Mr. Michael's got a story. He's got a past. We've all got a past, but not like Michael Bell's past. He wears shiny suits like he's a Vegas dealer. And I found out during the interview that he wears those suits on purpose because they correspond with where Michael's been. Anyway, I don't want to give too much of that away. But you know what? It's so refreshing to me, y'all, to meet up with an artist in a suit, in a position of power, who's not a butt about it. You know what I mean? Who keeps it real and knows how to touch people and knows why he's really here. So I'm going to let you loose with me and Michael Bell because he's a man with a past, but he's also a man with a future. And he's a man, I am proud to say, welcome, fellow artist. Take your shoes off, take that shiny tie off, and let's talk. So, Michael, can we start in a standard way and you just give us your name and your title?
I'm Michael Bell, and I'm currently the supervisor of visual and performing arts, world languages, school library, media, a whole host of other duties as assigned for Queen Anne's County Public Schools. And first and foremost, I'm an artist, like yourself.
And what's up with the suit?
Well, I gotta look professional for, Gayle Danley's in the house.
Yeah, but it's not professional like Joe Biden. It's like a Vegas, Is that on purpose?
Yeah, it's on purpose. I mean, our persona, we become who we feel we are, and so I like to dress the part, I like to look the part, and I like to become the part.
Like a what's
like a
that
method
part?
actor. Yeah, like a method actor, diving into character.
It's the part. I mean, I don't want to let this go quite so quick because when I met you, I was like, what's up with his suit? So I just want to go one more time on it.
Well, I'm being me, and it's very different than probably most supervisors of instruction that you've seen out there, but I've led a couple lives. So I grew up around, the mob guys in New York City.
Okay,
and
stop. Don't
all that area.
Stop. Don't go any further. Do tell.
It's, you grow up seeing guys wearing the suits, and my painting clientele, if anybody sees the paintings that I do and Googles me online, you'll see that I've done a lot of paintings for cast members from The Sopranos all the way back to John Gotti, and I did the book cover art for John Gotti Jr.'s book Shadow of My Father. So those guys in the life, I've known them for years, and I've been around them. And
what? Hey. So in Queen Anne's County, they get they get art and they get protection.
That's it. They're good. They're
awesome.
covered. Now,
what do you do when you miss that life? Because that's a different life.
Oh, it's definitely not a life I miss. It's definitely not a life that it's a life that you grow up into and you're around it. But in life, sometimes it's about the journey. And I always saw myself as an artist from a very early age. My grandmother was an artist. My mother was very good at art, and they encouraged me. I won my first art show at the age of 5, and I never looked back. The guys that I happened to grow up around and in that life, they're endearing to me. They actually have done more for me in my life, and even for my own son, than a lot of people on the other side of the coin, in the professional sector, in the education sector. So you get intrigued, the life intrigues a lot of people. There's a lot of heartache that comes with the life. So it's not all roses and what you see in the movies.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people are intrigued by that. For me, it's just stories, and they would always come to me to paint these stories because I grew up around it, knew all these people. So it's like I could do it in an authentic way. It's like you with your poetry, right? You go out and you're connecting with these kids. You're sharing a piece of yourself, right? Like I remember you telling me a part of you stayed on I-95 when you were going to that prison and visiting those kids, right?
Were some of your friends in the in the can there?
Oh yeah, in a life
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
absolutely. And some of my friends' kids are right now, and it's a shame. I don't really talk about that stuff a whole lot. People know about it, for sure. But it's one of those things where everybody's got stories, and it makes you who you are.
How do you bring I'm imagining this as two Michaels, right? You got this Michael,
Sure,
you got
yeah.
that Michael, and then you probably have the little Michael in between. How does the Michael who is cultivating teachers and digging up all these great arts experiences for children, how does he lean on the other Michael who has these other connections? Like, how does one side inform the other?
That's a beautiful question because, I shared a story about my son and what he was going through in school and all that. So life comes in full circle. So I started going to a boxing gym. I found a boxing gym to take him to so he could defend himself and be able to learn stuff. And there we met this beautiful kid, Sean, who was an amateur boxer. He was about 22, 23 at the time. And him and my son hit it off, and he would help him and he would do stuff for him. Well, Sean, of course, growing up where he's growing up, he got into some trouble, and I get the phone call, and Sean had been locked up. And so I went to see him, and I actually went before the judge. And had it not been for the fact that my position that I'm in, the fact that I was a 3-time National Teacher of the Year, and I have all these teaching accolades in addition to my artist background and that other life where I
Mm-hmm,
connect
mm-hmm,
with Sean on a deeper level,
mm-hmm.
I was able to stand up in front of that judge and get Sean out of his jam and be able to give him another life. And there's an old saying, once your life's been given back to you, you want to give it back to someone else. And all of a sudden he's turned his life around and he's paying it forward. And
Well,
my
step
son
back a
sees
little
that.
bit because you mentioned your son in an interview, well, an interview,
Yeah, it was an interview
a
with Ames.
panel,
Yeah,
yeah, that I saw you on. And that was real intriguing. Go ahead and give us that here too, Michael, about your son.
sure. My son, he was diagnosed with autism at the age of 7, and he went through a lot of extreme bullying situations throughout elementary school, and it was a struggle, and the struggle was real. But it was his artwork that really clued us into all he was going through. He came home one day with this painting and he wrote brave across it. And he shared with us that he was brave every day because he had to stand up and go to school and be in front of these same kids every single day that would do these horrific things that he would have to go through. And that was it for us. That was when I decided to make the change. I made a change for a different career, for a better life for our son. But it was also the start of us boxing together. I would go to the gym, and because of his autism, he wouldn't do it by himself. Dad would have to do it. So I had to get a
Mm-hmm.
trainer and I had to box. And here I am in there taking blows from these 25-year
Mm-hmm,
olds.
mm-hmm. To the chin, to the
Oh
chin.
man.
Yeah.
But you learn a lot getting in the ring with these guys. And he learned a lot too about himself and to believe in himself, even when nobody else does. And it was funny when he got into his first bout. I just sparred with these guys, so they'd bloody up my nose once in a while, let me know they're there. But they kind of took it
Mm-hmm,
easy on me because
mm-hmm.
I'm an older man. But he got in the ring for the first time, and he said he got out of there. I didn't know how he's going to do. You get
Yeah,
in there, that's it. Nobody can help
yeah.
you. And he said, Dad, he said, I felt alive in there. I felt more alive than I ever felt.
Ooh.
So
How old is he now?
now he's about to turn 14.
Oh,
So
so
he,
he's a
he's been
yeah.
boxing on and off now for 7 years.
What in your son? I mean, I look at my own children and I don't know them. Like I look at them and I go, who are your parents? And can I send you
The
back
Gayle
to?
Danley.
Can I send them back? You back to them?
Your mother's the Gayle Danley.
But what do you? Okay, do you look at your son and see any of your own experiences as a little boy?
Oh, sure. I mean, I completely do. And all you want is for a better life for them than you had. You try to make it a little better. so that they don't have a struggle as much as you do. But as you know, Gail, that's the hard part. Your story is your struggle. So without the struggle, what are you going to contribute? Where are you going to be? You need to be challenged. I
Well,
mean,
back up for me. You kind of glazed over that a little bit.
sure.
And if you need me to, I got, I got stories about growing
I
up,
know you do.
little
That's why.
brown girl in the South, right? Keep your
Yeah.
dress down, your legs closed, and your mouth closed too while you're at it. So, where'd you grow up?
Well, I've spent probably half my life now in Maryland and other half of my life spent in North Jersey. And I lived in New York City for a little while when I was in my early 20s. And, New York City had a profound impact on me. I mean, you could see the Empire State Building from the top of the street in my grandmother's neighborhood. And so it was something that you always kind of aspired to be on top of. And identity is funny, Gail. Just when you think that your identity is one thing, like I thought I'm going to grow up and here I am, Michael, I'm going to be Michael Bell, the artist. But then I became Michael Bell, the teacher. And here I am in my 26th year in education as Michael Bell, the supervisor. So I guess it's just about getting out of your comfort zone.
Well,
And
all the time. I mean, but what's the difference between, is there a difference between Michael Bell, the artist, and Michael Bell, the teacher? What, I don't see the difference.
you're right. I feel like I'm able to help a much wider audience in this role than in a teacher's role in a classroom when you can maybe impact however many kids you see in a given year. Here, I'm able to impact a whole district and I'm able to impact teachers and champion them to be able to help more kids. I think from being in the professional development session that you were in that if you don't have a love for those kids, I mean, that's the first thing a child learns from you is whether you truly care or not. That's the very first thing they learn. And that's why I brought you in there too. It's like I want to bring them some of the nation's best so they can see what it looks like. And I think if they see what it looks like, it'll give them a taste of all they could become. At the end of the day, they don't know what it looks like. And many of them never even leave their little microcosm, lately their bedrooms, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
used to be just the city they live in or wherever they are. So we have to show them that there's something else out there. And
Wait, we're showing the them
we're
is the
showing the
teachers
kids.
or them is the students?
Them as the students, but the teachers got to be able to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've got to be able to give them that platform to be able to do that. So that's why I've been trying to put them on the pedestal, make them the rock stars so that their kids might see them in a slightly different light and actually might want to tune into that channel.
We all have these titles and we all have
Sure.
these things that we're supposed to be doing. I'm a poet, but I'm really something else. I'm doing
Hmm.
something else. And you're the arts coordinator, supervisor. But what is it that you really do?
I like to think that the main thing I do is touch lives and make my mark in ways that it cannot be ignored and in ways that will hopefully inspire our teachers to be better than they are, play a little above their heads and do something for kids that nobody else might want to do. Like I got a
So
call
what
yesterday.
happens?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What's
Go
that?
ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering what happens when you miss the mark. How do you know when you haven't done that?
Well, leadership is a funny thing. You it's an interesting animal because oftentimes you're pulling people along that don't want to be pulled. You're challenging people that don't want to be challenged. There's the few that they're seeking it out and they want it from you, but often it's all about how can you flip that switch and get somebody re-inspired and back into why did I get into this profession in the first place? Why am I doing this?
So what
Why am I
happens when
here?
you miss?
What happens when you miss? I mean,
Yeah, what happens when you miss? What happens when you set out, you get up every morning, you get yourself clean, looking good. You told me the other day you're back in the office now, so you probably have
sure.
on your cologne, you got your hair products happening. And you have all these good intentions, right? Or
Sure.
you wouldn't be there. What happens when you just have this teacher and it just ain't going down?
Well, there's so many things that you can do to try to bring them up. I'd keep trying to bring them up until there's no hope. You know what I mean? You get to the point with certain people that if they're not willing to see it, if they're not willing to see that, like for me, I draw the line. I think that's what you're asking, what the line in the sand is. And what the line in the sand is for me is, are you doing what's best for kids? Would I want my own kid in your class? If I wouldn't want my own kid in your class, there's a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a problem there.
And so
And
then what happens? Do you have to
well,
like pull them, that
well,
hook?
for many of those teachers, I mean, there's a process in place for them to try to improve where principals go in and observe them. I would go in and observe them. If it doesn't go so well, then they get put on what's called a plan of action where they have a certain time period to try to improve. And if they don't improve over the course of time, they get let go. Or
Ooh.
oftentimes they'll find another place to go
Oh.
because they
Ooh.
don't want to deal with it.
And is that painful to you, or are you kind of like, well, baby, that is all in the game? Like, what's that like for you?
I'm the type of person that it all hits home for me. It's not all just business and let's bring somebody else in that spot. For me, it's, I don't want to fail anybody. It's the same way I felt when I was teaching in the classroom. I never had any kids that failed my class. If I failed a kid, I would feel as though I failed the kid. You know what I'm saying? It's me. It's on me. It's not on them. It's on me.
Okay, wait.
So,
I'm sorry. You
yeah,
never gave a kid an F?
maybe a long, long time. It'd have been a long time since.
Like in the 70s when
Yeah,
everybody
maybe a
was getting
long
Fs?
time.
Yeah.
And here's the thing why, though, Gail. If you ever looked at the work that some of my students produced, which was national acclaimed, record breaking, I mean, 10 million in scholarships my kids earned the past 5 years of my teaching alone, all the national medals. But guess what? If
What?
you walked in to talk to any of them and what it was about, they wouldn't be citing any of those medals. They wouldn't be citing any of that scholarship money. They would be saying, this is my safe place. This is my safe haven. This is where I come to be me.
I had a teacher. I took like the special classes, you know what I mean? Special
Yeah,
classes, it accelerated. But every now and then I would have a class where it was right there with everybody else dragging their knuckles across the ground, right? Just
sure.
a course that everybody had to take.
Yeah.
And we had one coach, Coach Rice. I think he died last week. He would come in, he'd curse everybody out. He would say, y'all in here in love. Let me tell you about love. You better wake up and smell the bacon, right?
Yeah.
so I'm wondering, Michael, with all the success, all the stellar winning awards, and all of that world class, did you ever just walk in and just throw a desk and curse everybody out and say, you better wake up and smell the bacon?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. You would have those hard conversations. I mean, and that's, I have them with teachers too. When like me, I'm somebody that I only operate. I know a lot of people talk about data, like data drives the instruction. Data does
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
data does that. For me, data shouldn't drive anything. Data should be the passenger at best. Your relationship should be the driver of everything. It should be the driver of your instruction. It should be all of that, because without a solid relationship in place, nobody wants to learn anything anyway. So they got to have a connection. So for me, that connection between my teachers, it's real, and I keep in touch with them, and I keep it real, and I operate on instinct only. If I feel something's going awry, I'm gonna pull it right then and there, and we're gonna get to the bottom of what's going on, because I'm not gonna allow things to get worse if they're going bad, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to address them right away because it's important, and it's it's not even just about being transparent. It's just about being real.
So Michael, is that when, because I asked you earlier about when your two worlds collide, right? This
Sure.
Michael and this Michael from the Newark and all of that, right? When you have to pull somebody's, what do you call it? You got to pull them by the
Pull their
coat.
card.
Yes, that too. By the coat hook. I can't think of the word. So is that when the other Michael has to come forward and keep it real, when you got to face a situation that just ain't working?
It depends on the person, you know. There's some people that the louder they scream, the quieter you have to come down in order
Oh,
for them
yeah,
to hear you.
yeah,
And then there's other people that, yeah, they need to hear it straight up.
yeah. You
What
ever
are
have
you
a teacher
doing?
screaming? You ever have
What
one
are you doing?
screaming?
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Like yesterday, for
yeah.
example, I get a call, and not to get into any specifics, but there was a kid that has suffered a lot of trauma in his
Mhm.
life. He's a young kid, and he's interested in the arts. And they asked me, as a supervisor, I mentioned who you are to them, and they were really excited that maybe you would look at their artwork. Would you ever be willing to stop by the school and look at this kid's artwork? I said, sure. I ended up going out there and I ended up sitting with that kid for an hour. He was telling me his whole life. He's sharing me his artwork, sharing me the stuff he's doing with his work, and how his life was starting to really connect with his work in mature
Nice.
ways, even though he was a
Yes.
very young kid.
Hmm.
So, I mean, so sometimes you go out and you do it yourself. I didn't call that art teacher at that school and say, hey, could you go talk to this kid for me? I went in myself.
But that's lovely that they know they can call on you for that. Sometimes you got folks and that they could be really reaching out in some real
Sure.
ways, but you don't dare ask them because they just have a look on their face like, don't mess with me. And so the fact that you have made yourself available. So I want to know, in that situation, you get there, you're face to face, the kid says, look at my art. If the art is funny looking, let's keep that real. Let's keep that real as artists, right? Every painting is not Picasso. All right. So the art looks funny, but you know that that's not the point of you being there. The point is the connection. Sometimes I get a poem
Yeah.
and I just go, well, baby, you wrote that. You sure wrote it. And then we put that to the side and we get to the real loving. Is that what you have to do? Something you have to go, well, baby. Well, I tell you
Well,
what.
I truly find beauty in many things that a lot of people wouldn't initially see. For me, it's not about my preconceived notion of what might be beautiful. It's really trying to figure out how that child's trying to communicate through that work.
Okay.
And I mean, you want to keep it honest with a kid,
Yeah.
and I think I've seen enough stuff in my time that I know in my gut if someone has a shot at this thing, at pursuing their dreams, pursuing this goal, or if it's something that, yeah, I don't know.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's
Like,
been a
yeah,
couple people
baby.
that proved me wrong too. I mean, I had this one girl that I taught. She became my first national award winner. When I saw her work in ninth, 10th grade, it was terrible. It was
And
bad.
what did you say? Because I need to
I
know.
was just,
You're
she was
so
just like, I'm going to be
tactful.
an artist one day.
Oh, and what you say? Not so
I'm like,
much.
okay, I'm sure you will be.
Oh, wait. Let me tell you. What's his name?
And
Keenan,
she
who's been on
did.
Saturday Night Live forever. You know
Yeah,
him. So we were members of this tiny church when I was in my, mid-20s, and he was like 12, and it was like a cult. Okay, just to
sure.
keep it real. And his mama used to parade his little chubby self around the church, and she would say, my baby is going to be a movie star. And we would be
Yeah.
like, yep. He sure is, baby.
Hey,
And
listen,
look now.
there's something to that though. I'm not even kidding you. When our son got his diagnosis for autism, you know, one of the first things I did was, Gail,
What's that?
I got letters, big bold letters, and that said, I believe in me. And I put it over his door in his bedroom. So Every day he'd walk out of that bedroom, wake up, and he'd see it, and he'd believe in himself, even when nobody does.
Can you bring that? I live in Bethesda. Can you bring those letters over here? And do you wish, Michael, that you had had a Mr. Bell when you were a young kid?
Absolutely. I think it's probably why I am who I am, because nobody ever did it for me. So I was always wishing I had that person that would have done that for me and shown me how to get those scholarships, shown me the path to do this or that. I mean, the only reason I even got into college was because of basketball. I was playing basketball back then and I got a basketball scholarship. Aside from that, despite the fact I was very talented with my art, I had already started to veer down a different path and nobody was there to catch me. Nobody cared. So that's why I do what I do. I want to catch kids before they
Well, I
fall.
mean,
And
what do you mean nobody cared? I mean, everybody was busy. Everybody was drinking. I mean,
I
what?
don't know. I
You don't
mean,
know
there
what they were
certainly weren't
doing.
any teachers around saying, "Hey, you really need to go into this. Let me help you along that journey. Let me show you the way. Let me show you what this is." Never happened. So, I mean,
Well, that's
thank God my
unfortunate.
family was supportive and they would go through these crazy times with me with let's try basketball. Now let's try this. Much like I do with my own son. Let's try boxing. Let's try this.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're trying to help them find their way. And for
Where do you
me,
think you would be if you had not found your way? What would Michael Bell be doing right now?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I always loved helping people from a very young age. I knew that early on, and that still holds true.
Yeah.
So I think that stayed with me. Even some of the rough kids that I would hang out with, that would get into trouble and all that. I was only kind of hanging out with them not because I thought they were cool and I wanted to be cool. I was hanging out with them because I wanted to help them. And
Are
but
you
I was
serious?
busy
Wait,
trying to
wait,
help.
wait. Back up. You wanted to help kids who were like your peers, and that's why that sounds like something you would say to your mama. Like your mama said, "Boy, what you doing hanging out with Bubba T?" Well, your friends weren't Bubba T, and you said, "Well, mama, I was just trying to help him."
Well, you know what? It was a lot of people would teachers back then. They would throw a kid like that to the side real quickly and real easily, and so I would always advocate for them because I knew these guys on a deeper level, and I knew that there was some heart in there. It wasn't just what you were seeing on the outside, and I guess I would lose my way on occasion because you get deep in that rabbit hole trying to help people and you forget about yourself too. You know what I mean? Along that journey,
Mm-hmm.
because those people, those same people, sometimes you're trying to help are trying to also drag you down with them because they don't want you to be better than them or they don't want you to achieve more than them. So it's kind of a weird slide. It's a weird push and pull. I don't know. I never saw it that way because I never saw myself as not being equal to everybody else around me. I never saw myself as being that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I did this or it's just everybody's got stories. Everybody's just got different stories.
And thank God, right? Can
Yeah.
you imagine if your story was my story and my story was your story? Like
I'm
you
gonna come
were a
back as Gayle
poet.
Danley.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? What would
Well,
you do?
I did try to channel you.
Yeah.
I'll be
What
brutally
happened?
honest with you. I did try to channel you, and I'm only giving you a snippet of this because of the time frame. But I
Yeah.
wrote you a poem.
Well, let me hear it.
So I knew you were going to get personal with stuff. So
Yeah.
I wrote it about if adversity is your mirror. Here's just a couple of things from it.
Okay.
When I look in the mirror, I see not what the rest of the world thinks I would be. Sometimes broken in fragments, floating in seas of grasses and marshes where crime scenes lead. When you look in the mirror, you think I would see all the tremendous success that appears around me. A journey to fame and making a name, but it's hurricanes and rain, tornadoes and trains, and scars to remind me what I've struggled to be, but that's not what you'll see.
Well, that's fancy. You
Is that up to the Gayle Danley
hey, I
gold
give
standard?
9.5 on that one, Michael.
Oh,
Hey,
I'm gonna work
in
on it. I'm gonna get to a 10 one day.
in the slam. When you told me this is my last question. This is awesome.
I'm
You're
supposed to be asking you
awesome.
questions.
I know. What happened to that? Okay,
You
go ahead.
keep
Ask me
asking me
something.
questions.
Okay, your turn. Ask me something. What you want to know? What you want to know?
I want to know when you stand up in front of a crowd like you
Mm-hmm.
did in front of our teachers. When I
Mm-hmm.
first saw you, my connection when you first shared that poem about those boys you visited in Virginia, it brought tears to my eyes. Like I connected on such a deep level. And I'm like, I got to bring her out to be my next keynote. I got to bring her out to work with my teachers because I want them to have that same heart with those kids. Like, cause I feel that and I want to do that for them. So how do you channel that same voice in others and also still find something new in a similar story that you often revisit?
First of all, when I got to you that day, we were at the college, right?
Yeah, we
I
were at
was
Chesapeake College.
delirious. I had just driven 3 hours from home. So I'm just happy to hear that the poem I did made sense and connected because I
It was
was really
powerful,
delirious.
so powerful.
He's referring y'all to the Juvenile Detention Center poem that I wrote millions of years ago about an experience I had going into a a detention center for youth in Richmond, Virginia.
That was such a compelling story. It brought so many emotions out of me. How do you find something? I'm sure you've told that story a million times, but it still brought emotion out of you. How do you find something new within it that will help spark that same just chills across your body when you hear that story the way you tell it? How do you do that each time? How do you find something new in it? Does
Well,
that make sense?
I mean, if anybody else had asked me that but you, I would be over here trying to think of the right answer. But you, the artist, are asking me, the artist. I mean, I go, you know what we
For
do.
you, your
I
own
go
personal.
back.
Yeah,
Okay,
your
my own
personal.
thing, my thing. I go back. Every time I do that poem, I go back to that detention center.
You're there.
I am there. I am never where I am. Only my body was with you guys. But the rest of me, the parts that count, were back there in Richmond underneath that big old clock that lets you know you've made it to Richmond.
Yeah.
And I'm with those boys and I smell them and I see those uniforms and it never goes away. The second it goes away, I need to retire the poem, right? Isn't that what you do?
Yeah.
And first of all, Michael, before all of that, don't even write about it and don't stand up and share it if you don't feel it. So
Yeah.
I always start with the feeling. And if the feeling ain't there, it's just another pretty idea that's in my notebook somewhere. But did
You
I
know,
just say something to you that you don't know, Michael?
sure. I don't know. I just developed such an incredible love for the way that you craft and tell a story, but also just your deep feeling every time because I heard that story, a variation of it twice, and it hit me both times like like a knockout punch.
Oh yeah.
It was
So do you
beautiful.
feel like the next time you hear me do that poem that you'll be able to do it with me? Cause that might make a really nice like a duo between us. Ooh, wait, Michael, before you answer. I got it. I got it. I do a few lines about that experience, right? I am
Yeah.
just like you. When it's nighttime and those thug boys walk up on me, I cross the street just like you, clutch my pocketbook to my side and pray, please don't let these fellas follow me to my car, right? And then maybe you come
Mm.
in with some lines
Wow.
about a tough guy experience that you've had, and we just go back and forth. Like, wouldn't that be hot?
It would be. It reminds me, it was interesting when the first time I heard the poem, okay, it took me back. This is something that a lot of people know for obvious reasons, but I guess the closest experience I had to something that related exactly to that, picture this, I'm in New York City at the National Art Convention. There's thousands, 20,000 educators had stormed New York City. This was in, I believe, 2016. And we're in New York City for the convention. I'm a presenter at the convention. So I get a phone call. Peter Gotti knows I'm in town and says, listen, and his son had just gotten arrested a few months prior. I was getting ready to unveil a painting for Peter for his son's business, and it was going to be at the tattoo parlor in Queens. And it was a big portrait of his infamous Peter's father, John Gotti Sr. And it was this portrait, and I was getting ready to unveil, but then they arrested his son, and he's locked up. He's on federal, state charges, all this stuff. Crazy thing. So he's down in the Metropolitan Correctional Center, MCC, down in Lower Manhattan. His son is being held. Young kid, 23. So Peter calls me. He says, hey, you're in town. He said, listen, would you take a ride with me? I'm going to visit my son. It's the last day before he's getting sentenced that I can see him. And he was bringing me going away for a little while. And I said, sure. I said, I'll come. So here I am. I'm leaving, picture, Gayle, this convention center that's flocked with all these educators that are there. They got their way paid for. They're all excited to learn about stuff. And, they're going to pack these sessions. I'm going to be presenting the next morning at my session. And I'm on my way. I'm going to leave my buddies and say, listen, I'm going to be back in a little while. He says, listen, wear a tracksuit, no jewelry, no cash. So I go down to Lower Manhattan, take the subway, meet him down there. I'm wearing a tracksuit, no jewelry, no cash, because we're going to be going into the bowels of this prison. When he gets there, he says, you're not going to believe this. He said, my truck, he said, I left my wallet with my license in my work truck. He said, I don't have my ID. He said, they all know me, but they're not going to let me in without my ID. He said, this is the last visit anybody's going to have with my son. He said, you got to go. You got to be the one. And he said, it's just got to be that way. So I said, sure, I'll go. So I went in there, all these people back at the convention partying. Here I am getting strip searched, going down to the bowels of the prison to go visit his son and have a heart-to-heart with him before he's about to go away for 7 years. And so we talked, and that was the teacher in me. We talked about life and how things got to change and, all that. I mean, there was a reason that I was there, but it connected me to your poem because it was that same feeling. Once those doors slam behind you, everybody's looking at you, and I go and see him. He comes out from behind the desk. He's like, oh my God, Michael Bell. He said, how you doing? He goes, where's my father? I said, there's a story there. He goes, tell him not to worry about it. He goes, I'll catch up with him in the flip side. He said, I'm so glad. He goes, well, I got 2 hours. Why don't you come sit with me and we'll talk? So we did, And
God, isn't that what happens to, how you hear somebody's first album, like Prince's first album is real good because he ain't got no money, right? He is down on the street and this art is all he's got. Then you get to like the 15th album and it's really bad because now he's like, caviar and he's got great cocaine, he's got everything. And I think for you, Michael, and for me, we're never far from the cocaine, right? We're never far from the itty gritty. And as long as, you're about to go do your keynote, I'm about to be crowned National Poetry Slam champion, and my daughter's father's cursing me out on the phone. I think even though that stuff is heinous, it keeps the art bleeding.
It does. Keeps you real too. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you real. And it makes you think, I'm thinking about all those people. I'm getting ready to go to a keynote there the next day. And it's just like all these people, what are they worried about? And it was funny because right before that, I was going to meet him for coffee before I was going to go down there with him. And it just so happened that Ray Liotta and J-Lo pull up at the cafe that we were at, and they were there for a premiere. and Carl Weathers was there from Rocky, and my son would have loved to meet him. And they all pull out and they're getting out of their limos. And it was funny. So I called him. I said, I don't think you want to be here. The paparazzi's all here for them for this thing. They're going to be taking pictures of you, of us. I said, he said, all right, I'll meet you at a different street and I'll meet you down the corner. So, there's such a different life one block away. And that's what it stuck with me, even for kids. You got a whole different life and it's just one block away. Why give up when you're right there? You're right there. You gotta have a little grit. You gotta stick through it. You gotta fight through whatever it is, because the sun will come up tomorrow.
Michael, you gotta do a book or something just for the students. And we can co-write it, but I think that's what they need to hear. I mean, forget the teachers for a while. I think that's what they need to know, is that you can become this thing or that thing, or maybe you can become that thing from this thing that you're facing right now.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. When you told me that you like Frank Sinatra, see, now the dots are all connecting up.
Why.
Hey, I did it my way.
That's it.
Hey, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Gayle.
Classy is created and hosted by Gayle Danley. Senior producer is me, Walker Vreeland. I am also very classy. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever podcasts are found. Also, rate and review us. It helps us out a lot since we are just getting started. You can follow Gayle on Instagram at Gayle Danley. And thank you so much for listening to our first episode. Stay tuned for more. We'll be back with a second episode next month.